too large to bear children, Cowboy, but he still held the Apache woman tight. The Cowboy was a man people noticed before he ever spoke. He was taller than most, wider than door frames, and built like the land itself, rough, heavy, and stubborn. When he rode into town, the ground seemed to feel it first. Horses shifted nervously when he passed, and other men stepped aside without thinking about it. He did not ask for respect, but it followed him anyway. People believed he was strong in every way that mattered. What they did not know was that his strength came with a quiet weakness he carried alone. From a young age, his life had been hard. He grew up working before sunrise and sleeping after dark. There was no room for softness in his childhood. His father believed a boy became a man through work and pain, and so the boy learned not to complain. By the time he was fully grown, his body was marked by years of strain. Old injuries, stiff joints, and a deep damage that no one could see. A doctor once told him, in simple words and with little care, that he would never have children. The doctor did not mean to be cruel, but the truth landed heavy. In a world where men measured their worth by land, cattle, and sons, this truth cut deeper than any wound. The Cowboy nodded, paid the fee, and never spoke of it again. From that day on, he built a wall inside himself. He worked harder than anyone else, lifted more, rode longer, and stayed quiet. People admired him, but they did not know him. Women noticed him too, but he kept his distance. He did not want pity. He did not want questions. And he did not want to love someone only to feel smaller in their eyes. At night, when the land grew still and the stars filled the sky, he sometimes wondered what kind of man he truly was. He had strength, skill, and respect, but no future that carried his name forward. He told himself that this was fine. Many men lived alone. Many men died alone. Still, the thought stayed with him, heavy as the saddle he lifted every morning. One late afternoon, near a quiet trading post far from town, something changed. The Apache woman had been standing there for some time, watching people pass without being seen. She carried herself with calm, but her eyes showed that she had lived through more than her years should allow. She wore simple clothing, worn but clean, and kept her hands close to her body as if protecting something invisible. She was not waiting for anyone in particular. She had learned not to expect things. Her past had taken much from her: family, safety, certainty. She had walked long roads she did not choose, and learned how quickly the world could turn its back. Yet she stood upright, refusing to disappear. Survival had taught her silence, but it had not taken her dignity. When the Cowboy first saw her, he did not think of romance or fate. He simply noticed her presence, the way she stood her ground without challenging anyone. There was something familiar in that, something quiet and strong. Their eyes met for only a moment. No smile. No greeting. Just a shared pause. He went about his business, trading supplies and checking his horse, but his thoughts kept returning to her, not because she was beautiful in the way stories describe, but because she looked like someone who understood weight, real weight, the kind that settles into bones and does not leave. Later, as the sun dipped lower, he saw her again near the edge of the post. She struggled slightly with a bundle she was carrying. Without thinking too much, he walked over and lifted it easily. She looked up, surprised but not afraid. She thanked him simply. Her voice was steady. They exchanged a few words, nothing personal, no names, no stories, just the basics. Yet even in those few sentences, there was a sense of balance. No one trying to impress, no one hiding behind pride. He noticed she did not ask him questions. That alone made him feel at ease. When they parted, he expected that to be the end of it. Life often was like that. Brief meetings that meant nothing and led nowhere. But as he rode away, he realized something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, his chest felt lighter, not heavier. That night, sitting by his fire, he thought about the woman. Not about what she might want from him, but about how she had looked at him, as if she saw a man, not a future or a failure. He did not know then that this small moment would matter. He did not know that two lives shaped by loss were slowly moving toward each other. All he knew was that something had stirred inside him, something he thought he had buried long ago. And for the first time in years, he did not push the feeling away. The days after their first meeting passed quietly, but neither of them forgot it. Life continued the way it always had, slow, demanding, and unforgiving, but something small had changed beneath the surface. The Apache woman returned to the trading post a few times after that. She did not come looking for the Cowboy. She came because it was one of the few places where she could trade goods and hear news. Still, each time she arrived, she noticed whether he was there, and each time he came, he found himself scanning the area without meaning to. When they spoke again, it was simple and careful. A greeting. A few shared words about the weather, the road, or supplies. Nothing that crossed a line. Both of them were used to guarding themselves. Trust, for people like them, was not given easily. The woman had learned early in life that speaking too much could bring trouble. Silence had protected her more than once. She watched people closely, learned their moods, and decided when it was safe to stand still and when it was better to move on. She had lost family members not to one single moment, but to many small ones. Choices made by others, orders she could not change, paths she was forced to walk. She did not carry anger loudly. It lived quietly inside her, shaped into patience. That patience was what kept her alive. The cowboy sensed this without fully understanding it. He had known hardship, but her kind of survival was different. She moved through the world as if it might vanish beneath her feet at any time, yet she did not rush. That steadiness drew him in. One afternoon, rain rolled in without warning. The trading post emptied quickly as people rushed for shelter. The woman stood under the edge of the roof, waiting for the rain to pass. The cowboy was there too, checking his gear. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he offered her a piece of dry cloth to cover her bundle. She accepted it with a small nod. It was a small act, but it mattered. In her life, small kindnesses were often the most meaningful. They talked longer that day, not about the past, but about the present, where the roads were rough, which streams still had clean water, which places felt safer than others. They shared knowledge, not memories. That felt safer for both of them. As the rain slowed, she mentioned she was staying nearby, not far from the trees where the land dipped low. He told her about his work, moving cattle and fixing fences for different ranches. He did not speak about himself beyond that. She did not push. When they parted again, there was comfort instead of distance. Over time, their meetings became more regular, sometimes planned, sometimes not. They did not name what was forming between them. Naming things made them fragile. Instead, they let it grow the way grass does. Slow, quiet, and strong. The woman began to notice the way he listened. He did not interrupt. He did not look away when she spoke. That alone made him different from many others she had known. She shared small pieces of herself, how she missed the sound of certain songs, how the land used to feel alive in a different way. She did not speak of pain directly, but it was there between the words. He listened without trying to fix anything. The cowboy, in turn, found himself opening up in ways he never had before. He spoke about the work, the loneliness of long rides, and how the nights could feel endless. He did not speak of his deepest truth yet, but he allowed her to see his tiredness, his doubts. That was something he had never shown anyone. What surprised him most was how safe it felt. There were moments when the world reminded them they did not belong together. A look from a stranger. A quiet comment said just loud enough to hear. Each time the woman stiffened slightly, ready to step away if needed.
He had learned to leave before being pushed. But the cowboy did not step back.
He did not argue or raise his voice. He simply stayed where he was, calm and steady. His presence said more than words ever could. Slowly, she began to trust that he would not disappear when things became uncomfortable. Trust did not erase fear, but it softened it. One evening, as the sun lowered and painted the sky in deep colors, they sat near the edge of the land where the grass met open space. The wind moved gently, carrying the scent of earth. For a long time, they said nothing. Then she spoke about loss. Not details, not names, just the feeling of having something taken and knowing it would never return. Her voice did not break, but her hands tightened together. He felt the weight of her words settle inside him. He wanted to say something meaningful, something strong. Instead, he said the truth. I don't know how to make that easier. She looked at him, surprised. Then she nodded. That is enough, she said. That moment stayed with him. He realized then that she did not want saving. She wanted understanding. That changed everything. As days turned into weeks, their connection deepened. They shared meals when they could, walked together when the land allowed it. They learned each other's silences, when to speak, when to simply sit. Still, there was something he held back. At night, alone by his fire, the cowboy felt the old fear rise again. The truth he carried pressed against his chest. He knew that if things continued, he would have to speak it. He feared the look that might follow, the shift, the distance, the quiet disappointment. He had seen it before in others. The woman, too, carried her own fears. She wondered how long peace could last. The world had taught her not to trust calm moments. She prepared herself for loss even while she hoped for something different. Neither of them knew how much the other was holding inside. Yet, despite the uncertainty, they continued forward, because for the first time in a long while, both of them felt seen, not for what they could give, but for who they were in that moment. And that feeling was rare enough to risk everything else. Time moved quietly between them, but the weight of unspoken truths grew heavier with each passing day. What had started as careful friendship was now something deeper, something that asked for honesty. Both of them felt it, even when neither said it out loud. The cowboy began to notice how often the woman looked at him when she thought he wasn't paying attention, not with expectation, but with curiosity, as if she were trying to understand the shape of his thoughts. It made him uneasy, not because of her, but because of what he was hiding. He had spent his life carrying that truth alone. Speaking, it felt like stepping into open ground with no cover. He feared the moment it would change the way she saw him. He feared that silence, once broken, could never be repaired. One evening the sky was clear and wide, the kind that made thoughts feel louder. They sat near a small fire, the warmth reaching only so far into the cooling air. The woman was quiet, her gaze fixed on the flames. He could tell she was thinking about something heavy. She spoke first. "You carry something," she said gently. "I can feel it." Her words were not sharp or accusing. They were calm, certain. He felt his chest tighten. For a moment he considered denying it, brushing it away like he always had. But something about the way she waited made lying impossible. "Yes," he said finally. His voice was low. "I do." Expectant. He stared into the fire, gathering the courage he had used for so many other things, but never this. Facing storms, wildland, and danger had been easier than facing this truth. "I was hurt when I was young," he began slowly.
"Not the kind you see, the kind that stays hidden." She did not interrupt.
She did not move closer or farther away. She simply listened. "I was told later that I would never have children." The words fell between them, heavy and final. He waited for her reaction. A change in her face, a sharp breath, anything. Instead, she remained still. Her eyes stayed on him, steady and thoughtful. "In my world," he continued, forcing the words out, "a man is measured by what he leaves behind. Land, name, blood. I don't have that to give." He swallowed hard. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to be looked at like something broken." For the first time since he began speaking, he looked at her. She did not look away. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "You are not broken." He shook his head slightly. "You don't understand. It changes things." "Yes," she said. "Truth always does." She was quiet for a long moment after that. His fear returned, sharp and fast. He prepared himself for distance, for her to pull back, for the end of whatever they were becoming. Instead, she spoke again. "In my life," she said, "children were taken from us. Some were lost before they could grow. Some were forced away. The world decided for us what would remain." She turned towards him then, her face open and honest. "I learned long ago that blood does not decide what lasts." She continued. "What matters is who stays, who stands beside you when there is nothing promised." The fire cracked softly between them. He felt something shift inside him, something he had carried like a burden for years. For the first time, it felt lighter. Still, doubt clung to him. "You say that now," he said quietly, "but the world doesn't. The world has never been kind to either of us." That truth settled easily between them. After that night, something changed. The wall he had built began to crack, slowly but surely. He spoke more freely. He laughed more easily. The heaviness in his chest did not disappear, but it no longer controlled him. The woman, too, opened up in her own way. She spoke of places she missed, of songs she remembered only in pieces. She spoke of strength passed down not through names, but through actions and memory. They began to move together more openly, no longer careful about who might see them. This brought new challenges. People noticed. Whispers followed them. Looks lingered. Some were curious, some were unkind. The woman felt the familiar tension return. He did not confront anyone. He did not raise his voice. He simply stayed by her side, his presence steady and unshaken. That alone sent a message stronger than any argument. One afternoon, as they walked near open land, a stranger made a remark meant to cut deep. The woman stiffened, ready to move away. Before she could, the cowboy spoke calmly. "She is with me, nothing less." The stranger backed off, surprised by the quiet certainty in his voice. Later, she asked him why he did that, why he risked attention. "Because I am tired of hiding," he said, "and because you should never have to stand alone." Still, fear did not disappear entirely. Late at night, she wondered how long safety could last. She had seen too many calm moments end without warning. She prepared herself even as she hoped. He, too, had moments of doubt. He wondered if he was being selfish, asking her to accept a life without the things society promised. He worried that one day she would wake up and want more than he could give, but every time those thoughts rose, he remembered her words by the fire. Who stays? One evening, as the land rested under fading light, they sat together again, closer now than before. Not touching, but near enough to feel warmth. "You told me your truth," she said softly. "That took courage." He nodded. "I was afraid." "So was I," she admitted. "But fear does not mean we turn away." He looked at her then, really looked, at the strength she carried so quietly, at the calm she brought into his restless life. "I don't know what the future holds," he said. "I only know what I can offer." She met his gaze. That is all anyone ever truly has. The wind moved gently around them, carrying the scent of earth and time. In that moment, neither of them felt complete or perfect. They felt real. Two people shaped by loss, choosing honesty over silence. They did not promise forever. They promised today. And for both of them, that was more than they had ever dared to hope for. The calm they had found did not go unnoticed. The world around them had a way of pressing in when people tried to live quietly outside its rules. What had once been passing looks and whispers slowly became heavier, more deliberate. Wherever they went together, eyes followed. Some were curious. Some carried judgment. Others held a cold warning that needed no words. The woman felt it first. She had lived long enough under watchful eyes to sense when attention turned dangerous. She began to pull back in small ways, walking a step behind him, choosing quieter paths, speaking less when others were near. It was not fear of him, it was fear for him. She did not want her presence to bring trouble into his life. The cowboy noticed, even though she did not explain it. He understood more than she knew. He had seen how the land treated those who did not fit into easy stories. Still, seeing her retreat hurt more than he expected. One evening, as they sat together after a long day, he asked her gently why she seemed distant. "The world is watching," she said. "It always does." He nodded. "Let it watch." She looked at him then, concern in her eyes. "You do not understand what watching can become." She spoke of past moments, never in detail, never naming places, but enough for him to grasp the danger she meant. Attention could turn into force, curiosity into control. She had learned that survival sometimes meant becoming invisible.
The cowboy listened carefully. "I cannot ask you to be brave for me," he said.
"But I cannot pretend you do not matter." His words were not dramatic. They were steady. That steadiness was what made them hard to ignore. Pressure came from other places, too. Men he worked with began to ask questions. Not directly, but enough to make their meaning clear. Why did he spend time with her? Why bring trouble close when life was already hard? Some spoke as if offering advice. Others spoke as if issuing a warning. He answered very little. His silence, however, was not taken as agreement. It was taken as challenge. One day, his work slowed. Jobs he once had, without question, were suddenly already filled. He understood the message. The world was pushing back, testing how much he was willing to lose. That night, he sat alone by his fire longer than usual. Doubt crept in, quiet and sharp. He wondered if staying with her meant dragging her into deeper danger. He wondered if letting go might be the kinder choice. The woman, too, struggled. Pull between safety and connection tearing at her. She had survived by leaving before things became unbearable. That instinct had kept her alive. Now, for the first time, it asked her to walk away from something she wanted to protect. She did not sleep much those nights. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy. "Maybe it would be easier," she said, "if I went on." He looked at her, understanding exactly what she meant. The thought hit him like a blow. "If that is what you want," he said slowly, "I will not stop you." She searched his face, hoping to find anger or relief. She found neither. "What do you want?" she asked. When he did, his voice was firm. "I want you to stay, but not if it costs you your safety." Her eyes filled, though she did not let the tears fall. No one had ever given her that choice before. Not without pressure. Not without demand. They sat together in silence, the weight of the decision settling between them. The next weeks tested them in ways neither expected. A group of men approached the woman one afternoon while the cowboy was away. They spoke politely, but their meaning was clear. She was asked where she was staying, who she was with, and how long she planned to remain. The questions were wrapped in calm voices, but the threat beneath them was unmistakable. She answered carefully, revealing nothing. When she told the cowboy what had happened, his jaw tightened. Anger rose in him, hot and fast, but he forced it down. Anger would only make things worse. "We need to be careful," he said. "Together." That word, together, meant everything. They changed their routines, moved quieter, chose places less traveled, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Survival for both of them had always been about adapting. Even so, tension followed. One evening, while passing through a familiar area, a man blocked their path. His tone was mocking, his words sharp. He spoke of boundaries, of knowing one's place. Before she could react, the cowboy stepped forward. Not aggressive, not threatening, but solid. "There is no trouble here," he said calmly. "And there will be none." The man hesitated. The cowboy's size and certainty left no room for easy dominance. After a moment, the man stepped aside, muttering under his breath. They walked on without looking back. Later, the woman asked him why he never raised his voice. "Because loud words invite louder ones," he said. "I would rather end things quietly." She smiled at that, a small, tired smile. Despite everything, moments of peace still found them. Early mornings, shared meals, long walks where the land seemed to breathe with them. These moments became precious, reminders of why they endured the rest. Still, the pressure did not disappear. Supplies became harder to trade. He felt the cost of his choice settling into his bones. Yet, even as things grew harder, he did not regret it. What surprised him most was how strong the woman became beside him. It did not shrink, she did not disappear. She stood with him, her presence steady and unyielding. "You are choosing a hard road," she told him once. "So are you?" he replied. They both knew the truth of that. One night, as the wind moved through the trees, she placed her hand on his arm, a small, simple gesture that carried great weight. "I have run my whole life," she said quietly. "I am tired of running." He covered her hand with his own. "Then we stand," he said. The world around them did not soften. It did not apologize. But neither of them did they step away. They had been tested by loss before. This time, they chose not to surrender to it. They did not know what the next day would bring, but they knew they would face it together. Time did what it always does. It moved forward, slow and steady, carrying moments away and leaving others behind. The world around them never truly changed, but they did. Little by little, they learned how to live within it without letting it take everything from them. They did not settle in one place for long. Staying too long brought questions, and questions brought trouble. Instead, they moved with the seasons, choosing quiet areas where the land was wide and people were few. It was not the life either of them had imagined once, but it was the life they chose. The cowboy worked where he could. The jobs were harder to find, but his hands were strong, and his reputation for honest work still reached some ears. He repaired fences, helped with animals, and built small shelters where needed. He never complained. Work had always been his way of making sense of the world. The woman helped in her own ways. She gathered, repaired, cooked, and brought order to places that had known only survival. She carried knowledge passed down quietly, knowledge of the land and its rhythms. Together, they built small pockets of peace wherever they stayed. Their life was simple. Mornings began with the sound of wind or birds. Evenings ended by firelight. They spoke often, but they also learned the comfort of silence. Not the silence of fear or distance, but the silence of understanding. There were nights when the weight of the past returned. The cowboy sometimes woke with thoughts of what might have been. A different life, a different measure of worth. The woman sometimes dreamed of voices she could no longer hear, names carried away by time. On those nights, they did not try to fix each other. They simply stayed close. The world continued to remind them of what they were not. No family name passed forward. No children running through the grass. No record written in books or marked in stone. At first, that absence felt heavy. But slowly, something else took its place. They began to notice how people remembered moments more than names. A repaired fence that still stood years later. A shared meal remembered during a hard winter. A safe night offered without question. People spoke of a large, quiet man who worked without complaint. of a woman with calm eyes who listened more than she spoke. They were remembered separately, then together, not as legends, but as something rarer, kind presences in difficult times. One afternoon many years later, they returned to a place they had once passed through briefly. The land looked different, but the shape of it felt familiar. They stopped near a small rise and rested there, watching the light move across the ground. The cowboy's hair had begun to gray. His body moved slower now. The years of work had left their mark. He felt no bitterness about it. His body had carried him where he needed to go. The woman sat beside him, her expression calm. Time had not softened her strength. If anything, it had sharpened it into something steady and unbreakable. "You ever think about what comes after?" he asked quietly. I considered the question. "After us?" she asked. "Yes." She looked out at the land before answering. "I think," she said, "that the land remembers more than people do." That felt right. They had spoken before about what the world valued, about legacy and worth, about what lasted and what disappeared. Over time, they had come to understand something important. Not everything meaningful leaves a mark that can be pointed to. Some things live on in quieter ways. As the years passed, they slowed even more. Travel became shorter. Rests became more important. They found a place where the land felt kind, where the air moved gently and the nights were calm. They stayed longer there than anywhere else. People passed through sometimes. Some stayed a while, others moved on quickly. All of them left with something: a repaired tool, a shared meal, a moment of rest. Few knew much about the pair. Few were asked. That was fine. One evening, as the sky shifted into deep colors, the cowboy sat by the fire, the warmth reaching his tired bones. The woman sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "You never told me," she said softly, "if you regret it." He knew what she meant. He thought about it carefully. "No," he said. "I regret the years I believed I was less than I was." "And now?" she asked. "Now I know better." The wind moved gently around them. The fire cracked softly. The world felt distant, but not cold. When the end came, it did not arrive suddenly or violently. It came the way life often does, quietly, with warning. His body grew weaker, his breath shorter. The woman noticed before he spoke of it. She stayed close, tending to him with patience and care. There was sadness, yes, but no fear. They had faced fear before and survived it. This was different. One morning, as light crept across the land, he took her hand. "Thank you," he said. "For staying," he replied. She held his hand tighter. "There was nowhere else I wanted to be." He passed with the calm of a man who had made peace with his life. Long enough for grief to soften into memory. Long enough for pain to make room for gratitude. When she finally moved on, she did so without bitterness. She carried him with her, not as a loss, but as a part of herself. Years later, people still spoke of that place. Some said a quiet strength lingered there. Others said it felt safe, though they could not explain why. No names were written. No stories were officially recorded. But the truth remained. A man once believed he had nothing lasting to give. A woman once believed survival was the best she could hope for. Together, they proved something else was possible. They showed that a life does not need witnesses to matter, that love does not need proof to be real, and that what truly lasts is not what we leave behind, but how we choose to live while we are here.